course, a very special day as we welcome legislation from the House of Commons upon successfully going through second reading. This is, of course, a hearing about Bill C5, an act to amend the Bills of Exchange Act, the Interpretation Act, and the Canada Labour Code, also known as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. So, just a quick piece on organization. We're going to have 2 separate hours of witnesses to discuss this bill with our MPs. And for the sake of our witnesses, we have representation from the Liberal Party, the governing party, the opposition party, the Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois, as well as the NDP. We are doing this remotely for the most of us, and I just want to say to our witnesses, if there's a conversation happening and you wish to add to the comments or perhaps correct something, you just try to get the questioner's attention by just waving your hand, not my attention, but try to get the questioner's attention. And by the same token, I'd like to ask our MPs to please direct your questions by starting with the name of the person you would like to answer the question. It makes it a lot easier. That being said, we now proceed. We have 3 witnesses on the first panel, and I hope is it Carlon? Okay. So Carlon Big Snake, who's a small business owner. We also have from the Canadian Federation of Library Association, Stacey Allison Casson, Assistant Professor, University of Toronto. And from the Federally Regulated Employers, Transportation and Communications, we have Derek Hines, who's the President and CEO. So the way we do this is you do your opening statements for up to 5 minutes. You don't have to use all the 5 minutes, but up to 5. If you go beyond 5, I'm somewhat flexible. But of course, for the sake of an hour, we have to keep moving. Yeah. So we're going to start with Carlon Big Snake. And I hope the connection is solid enough.
Yeah.
These are your introductory remarks for 5 minutes, please.
Okay. Thank you. I guess, first of all, my apologies. Last question you had, I had it on mute. So anyhow, first of all, I'd like to say, Hukya. My name is Carlon Big Snake. I'm a proud member of the Blackfoot member from the Siksika Nation in the Treaty 7 territory. Today, I'm very honored to represent and witness a promising historical event for Indigenous people and Canadians in making a positive change to Canada's modern society. Not only for ourselves, but to look to at least to these opportunities, which will allow an equitable quality of life. Unfortunately, today's society is apportioned, which in turn causes hate and racism. The acceptance of the RTC call for action number 80 and supporting the Bill C5 changes will show the sincerity and commitment from the federal government. This action will show a promising future for Canada and Indigenous peoples across the nation. The proposed Bill C5 will also enhance the education system. They'll be prudent to assist Canada's educational institutions for a better understanding of our forgotten history. My wife, Lisa, and I are descendants and survivors of the residential school system. We were raised with negative impacts of history. However, we felt it was our responsibility to take that mentality and use our hardship for strength for our future. We decided to advocate in a positive manner to give hope to our families and communities. We'll also use those negative impacts to strengthen and create a future for our future generations. Recently, my wife and I acquired 2 white buffalo. They are held with honor and respect amongst the people. In the past, the buffalo provided food, shelter, and medicine. However, when a white buffalo is born, it is a sign of strength and hope. And that we will see change soon for our people, which I see now. With the proposed acceptance of action number 80 of Bill C5, our intentions as caregivers was not only for our people, but a way for everyone to receive blessings. It is our way of allowing Canadians to visit First Nation territory and see that we as individuals have pride in who we are today, and to create a united society. In closing, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to address the matter, and I have faith that the decision will be made to accept and have September 30th as a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Together, we can begin to heal the past and look forward to a united, prosperous future. Kinamatsin. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Pass it
Mr.
over.
Pinksnake. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. We're now going to go to Stacey Allison, and I hope I pronounced it correctly, Casson, Assistant Professor, University of Toronto. Are you with us?
I am. Thank you.
There you are. Okay, up to 5 minutes, and please proceed.
Okay. So good afternoon, and I guess maybe good morning to some of you, members of the committee and fellow witnesses. So I'm Stacey Allison Casson. I'm an assistant professor teaching stream at the Faculty of Information, University of Toronto. And I'm chair of the Canadian Federation of Library Associations Indigenous Matters Committee. And I'm appearing today on behalf of the CFLA. I'm a citizen of the Métis Nation of Ontario, and I'm speaking from Oakville, Ontario, which is the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe. And I also acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And I want to thank the Standing Committee on Canadian Cultural Heritage for the opportunity to speak on Bill C5 on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And I want to start off actually with a brief story. So like many families right now, we are working and learning from home. My youngest daughter is in grade 3, and she does her schooling currently from the kitchen table. So on September 30th, as in in past years, we wore our orange shirts. And as I came in and out of the kitchen on that day, I was continually struck being able to sort of listen in on a day of grade 3 on the lessons and discussion that were taking place on the topic of residential schools. The teacher read them, Phyllis Webstad's story of her orange shirt, and the children in the class were invited to reflect on the story in different ways, and really reflecting on it as children, listening to a story about another child. And I found it particularly moving. And throughout the day, as they watched videos, they did orange shirt themed artwork, and the teacher led the group through, of 7 to 9-year-olds through some very difficult conversations. And after school that day, we had further conversations about within our own family about residential schools and Canada's role. And my child had one word question that I think many parents are familiar with: why? And although I don't know, as far as I know at this point, I have not had a family member who experienced residential schools. I have had to talk to my children about why my grandmother hid her identity, why she did not teach my dad her language. And I'm hopeful and encouraged that my children and their classmates are learning about residential schools and Indigenous peoples in Canada. And I know we have more work to do. And I am really, really so grateful for all of those, for Phyllis for sharing her story to bring us to this point. So as a librarian and a parent and an Indigenous person, a great number of things struck me that day. Among them are the following: so that stories are important for truth and understanding in conversations. Facts are important, and creating deliberate space, time apart from the contours of work and school and our busy days in the lives that we all lead, is really vital to ensuring learning and awareness and remembrance of residential schools and the ongoing impacts of colonization, and also learning about the vibrancy of Indigenous peoples and cultures. So on September 30th, what is now known as Orange Shirt Day, has in many schools and libraries and other sites has become an important day of learning and remembering. Creating a national day of truth and reconciliation will create further weight and impetus for a day of remembering and learning for all Canadians. And this is important because, as we know, the first step in reconciliation is the truth part, which includes learning facts, hearing stories, and understanding the ongoing impacts of colonization that will ultimately lead to reconciliation. So as a librarian and educator, I recognize the importance of access to materials, as well as the importance of infrastructure in the delivery of such materials and learning. And as we know right now in the pandemic, that's particularly important, access to online materials. So this includes access to the internet, to materials that are both age and culturally appropriate, and to materials in an appropriate language. And as a parent, I have found myself seeking out books and guides to help me have conversations with my children and sharing these with other parents. So libraries exist in schools, communities, hospitals, and higher education, making them key hubs for accessing information, programming, and technology across the spectrum of age, location, and social position, and enable learning outside the bounds of formal education. Libraries play an important role in ensuring people have the ability to learn about the residential school system, the Indian Act, treaties, but also Indigenous art, literature, language, and culture, and the experiences of Indigenous people in Canada. Creating a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation would encourage and support the development of programming, collection of materials, and bring greater learning and awareness to all people in Canada. In 2017, the Canadian Federation of Library Associations Working Group on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released a report which set out detailed actions for libraries to take to implement the calls to action. Since the release of the CFLA TRC report, the Indigenous Matters Committee has formed a major component of the work of the CFLA. Numerous calls to action relate to education, language, and programming, and speak to the availability of reports and documentation. Furthermore, calls to action numbers 69 and 70 highlight the importance of compliance with UNDRIP regarding Indigenous peoples' rights to know the truth of what happened and access to information regarding human rights violations. It's thus vitally important that infrastructure is present to support both control and access to documentation. So to return to the story I told at the beginning of these remarks, it's my hope with the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation that learning and discussion will be amplified across Canada. In this, libraries are able to act as a key component to help ensure we will not have another generation that will not know the truth, and that we will acknowledge and honor the survivors and remember those who have died. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Allison Casson. Is it Ms. or Dr. Allison?
Doctor.
Dr. Allison Casson. That's right. Good for you. I want to now go to federally regulated employers, representation, transportation, and communications with Derek Hines, who's the president and CEO. Mr. Hines, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Mr. Chair, need to start with a quick shout out to my mom, who happens to be one of your constituents. So I'm sure she's watching you and I today. Thank you for inviting me today as a witness. In my 5 minutes, I just have some general comments and happy to take questions and discuss these important issues with you after that point. First, let me tell you a little bit about FETCO, the organization for whom I work. We are an association of private sector, federally regulated employers. Our membership includes major airlines, courier companies, railways, telecom firms, et cetera, as well as others. Our members are almost exclusively 24/7 continuous operations. They run businesses that essentially never stop. They connect the domestic and global supply chains and provide critical services to Canadians on a daily basis. Let me start by saying that FETCO and its members fully support and endorse truth and reconciliation. Our members have a tremendous commitment to diversity and inclusion within their organization, and this fits perfectly within that broad framework. Our members have no opposition to this proposed holiday. They appreciate the significance of setting aside a day of reflection. They agree it's a positive step in the direction of reconciliation, and frankly, they'd like to be partners in this important journey. In the broader context, what I'd like to talk to you briefly today about is basically the concept of what a paid statutory holiday means within the context of the federal private sector, to provide you with, I hope, some insights around what this looks like in practical terms. What I'm not going to do, and I don't want to do, is in any way disrespect this important dialogue by somehow implying that we should put a price on reconciliation. That will be wrong. That's not my intention. What I do want to do, and I think it's important that we all understand what a paid holiday means. My colleagues at the Canadian Federation of Independent Business conducted some research a couple of years ago and concluded that a paid statutory holiday across the entire country basically costs the economy in effect of $3.6 billion. That's assuming all jurisdictions, of course, participate in the holiday. Within the federal private sector, where my members reside, we've done some back of the envelope analysis. It's pretty crude. It looks like it's probably about a $600 million cost for a one-day paid holiday. I spoke with some of my members about this specifically. I spoke with a member who employs about 5,000 Canadians in a 24/7 continuous operation, and they, in their operation, estimate that a paid holiday costs about $1.4 million for them specifically. It's important to note that the federal private sector is unique in Canada. As I noted earlier, these businesses don't stop during a holiday. So these are not your typical 9-to-5 desk jobs. These are businesses that continue to run whether there's a holiday or not. They don't shut down and take the day off. So what happens, of course, in practical terms is for those that work, they typically receive extra compensation. We all know the expression, you're going to receive overtime at time and a half, for example. And what happens in sort of a building on that perspective is that those who receive that time and a half will often take it off later on as time off. And then those who are brought in to replace them for that day are again paid overtime at time and a half. So there's a bit of a compounding effect of what a paid statutory holiday means in the context of continuous operations. So really, in essence, it becomes a cost item for all intents and purposes. It's also important to note that a change like this one doesn't occur in isolation. So last year, for example, the government introduced 3 new paid days to the Canada Labour Code. They're called personal leave days. Employees are entitled to them for a multitude of reasons. It's quite flexible, the reasons for which they can be taken. 5 are guaranteed, 3 of which must be paid to the employees. Today, we're talking about Bill C-5, which will potentially add 1 more. And Minister Tassi, the Minister of Labour, is planning to soon add another. It's in her mandate letter under the title of Family Day. So this means that over about a 2-year period, the government will be adding 5 days of paid time off in what is a very condensed time frame. So all this said, if the government does proceed in this manner, we do have a few recommendations that we would hope that you would consider in your deliberations. First, one option is to consider declaring a National Truth and Reconciliation Day without necessarily making it a paid holiday within the federal private sector. I've looked at the witness testimony that you heard earlier in the week, and I'm not sure there's a huge push that advocates are necessarily asking that this be a paid day off. Some of your witnesses talked about the fact that this is not meant to be a day for people to put their feet up or to watch TV. If we did it this way and it was not necessarily a paid day off, employers could be actively engaged with Indigenous leaders to ensure that the day is commemorated properly and respectfully. Our second recommendation, if the Truth and Reconciliation Day does proceed as a paid holiday, is that it actually be made effective in 2022 as a paid holiday. The 2021 budgeting in most major corporations is done. That financial planning is already complete, and it would be quite disruptive to the process to start that process all over again to accommodate this. Finally, and our final request, if we do add a paid day for Truth and Reconciliation, is that the government reconsider its commitment to adding Family Day as well. Adding both in the federal sector at this time would mean that the federal jurisdiction would have the highest number of paid stats within all the Canadian jurisdictions. And what ultimately will result from that is a bit of an unfair asymmetry between organizations that operate in the federal sector versus many, the vast majority, which actually operate across the provincial sectors. That's all I have to add. I'd be happy to take your questions, happy to talk about this. We do believe this is a critically important issue that we want to be supportive of. Thanks.
And thank you, Mr. Hines, and regards to your mom as well. Now we go to our questions. Just to remind our witnesses, these are several rounds. As I just now calling up the list, I believe Mr. Waugh is up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just
For 6 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say thank you for the comments by Mr. Big Snake, along with Mr. Hines and Dr. Ellison Cassian. I'll start first with the doctor. As a former school board trustee in the province of Saskatchewan, I totally agree with you on materials, the internet, the language, and I think this day needs an education component to it all over Canada. And I'm not sure your organization, the Canadian Federation of Libraries Association, with materials, new materials and such, are you at the point now that if this does become a day of recognition on September the 30th, that we can look at your library association putting out materials that all of us could have access to?
Well, I thank you for your question. And I think an important thing to know about the Canadian Federation of Library Associations is we're a federation of associations. So we actually represent the provincial associations and as well as specialized associations, for example, the Canadian Law Association or health associations, and really act as a mechanism for bringing together conversations that are then mobilized within our individual jurisdictions. So yes, there are already numerous library associations that have been working on this issue for several years. We don't develop curriculum specifically through the CFLA. We have a detailed report that I mentioned that lays out actions that can and should be taken in the context of individual libraries or individual associations. I do know that the Library Association in Saskatchewan is quite active in developing all kinds of programming. For example, I know that they have a program on right now to develop, to look at specialized subject headings, which is an important part of accessing materials. Subject headings that have been used in many libraries have actually been racist terminology or older terminology that's problematic. So there is a considerable effort ongoing across many library associations and professional groups to change those. So we are no longer accessing materials with inappropriate language and names for nations that are not the names the nations use themselves. So that kind of work is ongoing. So I cannot speak for all of the associations, down to the individual libraries, but I know that this is such an active and considerable effort is being put into these programs across Canada, and so I would think so.
Good. Thank you. I'll just move now to Mr. Hines. Thank you for your presentation. I used to work with Bell Canada. We did not recognize Remembrance Day as a federal holiday. That was a change. So you brought out several good points. One from Stephen Kakfe, the former Premier of Northwest Territories, who you quoted correct, the definition of a holiday. But you did have a good point about federal holidays versus provincial holidays. And that can be a contentious issue because when I was in the television business, for an example, provincially, Remembrance Day was a holiday, but under the CRTC, Remembrance Day was not. So if you can expand on that, because that will be a contentious issue with every province versus federal jurisdiction in this country.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It is one of the challenges that, I guess one of the many challenges that emerges within this complex federation in which we all live, that the rules of the workplace, for example, are determined by the jurisdiction in which you operate. The federal sector is covers about 10% of all employees within the country. The rest are covered under the relevant provincial jurisdictions wherever the organization might operate. And of course, I don't need to tell most of you on this call that that's determined by the Constitution around which powers reside where. So most of the members that I represent are what at the writing of the Constitution's time were believed to be those large federal undertakings, transportation firms, communications firms, banking, etc. The challenge that exists for something like this is when we add paid holidays to the Canada Labor Code, they only affect those organizations that are federally regulated. We add 2, which is now what is really largely under consideration. The federal sector, the private federal sector in this country, will have the largest number of paid holidays. So if you're an organization whose competitor, for example, might be provincially regulated, you are now at a cost disadvantage against that competitor. So it would be our objective, our hope, that we would do as much as we could to create harmonization when it comes to paid stat holidays, as well as many other issues that we talk to the government about, occupational health and safety, lots of other issues where harmonization just makes life a whole lot easier and removes any unnecessary competitive imbalance that could be brought into force. What I will say is this in no way takes away from our members' support and belief in setting aside a day for national truth and reconciliation. I can go on ad nauseum about how committed they are to that, but I will say that these are not mutually exclusive concepts. We can do one and not necessarily make it a paid holiday.
My time's up, Mr. Chair. I stopped it at 5:48. So
Yes, I was being rather generous to you, sir, and I will be generous to others across the board as well. I take this time to welcome. We have 2 MPs who joined us. Madame Desbiens is with us, I believe. She's from the Bloc, and also I mentioned to our witnesses earlier about the party representation. Bonjour. I mentioned the 4 parties. Well, we also have a rule within the committee that both the independents and the unrecognized parties, from a House perspective, they also have access to our committees. So I want to welcome Mr. Paul Manley, who's from the Green Party. Mr. Manley, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Sorry, you'd think I'd learned this after a while. I'm off mute now. So Mr. Housefather, 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much to all the witnesses. Mr. Hines, it's great to see you again, and I'm going to come to you next. And Mr. Bigsnake, thank you so much for your very moving story, both about your family and the Buffalo, and really appreciate it. And Dr. Casson, I'm a huge fan of libraries. When I was mayor of Côte Saint-Luc, our library was open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., 365 days a year. I think the library is the essence of a community. And so my first question is to you. You talked a little bit about how libraries would help to instruct school children in, in terms of the history that we've had about residential schools in Canada and the purpose of the National Day of Reconciliation. Could you talk to me a little bit about how libraries might also help employers do the same thing? What could you do for adults as well as you could do for kids?
Well, I would like to think that many adults use the library as well, as much as kids. And so I think speaking to programming for adults, we know that certainly, as I was talking about my role as a parent, that is certainly a vital role in understanding just how to facilitate conversations with children. But I would also say that for adults, there's lots of learning. I did not learn about residential schools when I was a child, and that learning has had to primarily take place as an adult. And of course, while I read picture books to my children and learn from them, I'm going to perhaps read other kinds of materials or engage with other kinds of materials. So when we look to adult learners across, as I said, the spectrum, there are things like book clubs. We know that many public libraries have book clubs. And as I said, there's also many different kinds of libraries. So there's public libraries, but there's also libraries that exist in other kinds of spaces. So libraries in hospitals, research libraries are another area that are really important in conducting research around Indigenous matters. And so when we look at the fundamental role that access to materials and information and data and reports, that really goes across the spectrum and absolutely serve to not only learn history, but also access to information and research about ongoing impacts, for example, of the residential school system and how that impacts families in all kinds of ways. So there are absolutely roles for libraries in multiple kinds of contexts. And as I said, in particular, thinking about how we provide access to those materials.
Thanks so much, and I do think libraries will play a central role in this holiday. I really do. Now, let me come to Mr. Hines, and let me just say that I'm very sensitive, and I to the first of all, I want to thank FETCO for its commitment to truth and reconciliation, and its understanding of the importance of the of this day, and I think you spoke very sensitively to that while balancing that with the needs of the people you represent. So I want to thank you for that. And I will convey to Minister Tassi the concern that you've expressed about adding another day in terms of Family Day in addition to this holiday. Could you just speak a little bit more, because that one of the points you raised intrigued me a little bit in terms of your subsidiary request, if we do go ahead and make this a paid holiday, about it coming to force in 2022, because budgets for 2021 had already been done. Can you sort of just speak a little bit more to how you would propose the committee do that, or the government do that?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the question, and also thank you for your kind comments. We do make great efforts within our organization to be a collaborative participant in any consultation that's happening under Minister Tassi's mandate. So you and I have had a lot of interaction in these early days as a result of that. When I reached out to members about this issue, I have to say the response was quick, and it was very positive. This was one of the issues that was raised, was around financial planning. So much of the budgeting and planning that gets done for an organization, everything down to the fine detail of shift scheduling for the year ahead and determining, human resources needs, particularly in operational environments, gets done well in advance. And what I did hear from some of our members is this planning is complete for 2021. We're not far away from January the 1st as a result. So it would be somewhat disruptive to have to sort of unfold all of that and then layer in a paid holiday at this point. So I think it would be appreciated amongst our member community if at least the paid portion of this holiday was delayed to 2022. That's not to say that the National Day could not be set aside in 2021, and we will do all that we can to be supportive of it. But if the portion of it that actually kicks in the paid part, makes it a paid stat, could be extended to 2022, that would make our lives a lot easier and would certainly be appreciated.
I appreciate that information. Thank you. Mr. Chair, do I have any time left, or am I done?
You have 39 seconds. Make the most of it.
I think in 39 seconds, I'm not going to achieve much. I just want to thank all of our witnesses, and je permettrai mon collègue du Bloc québécois d'aller.
Okay.
Give the floor to the Bloc. Monsieur Shampoo, for 6 minutes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank the witnesses for coming today. We appreciate that, and it's very enlightening. Now, first of all, Madam Alison Casson, you raised the issue of indigenous languages. And for us, language issues in the Bloc Québécois are very important. Those are being raised. We know there are several indigenous languages that are threatened. Some have already probably disappeared, or they've not spoken much. There are several groups around the country, a group of young people with a great initiative that are trying to revive an indigenous language which was spoken by their grandparents and been forgotten. It's a great story. I think it's a good way to make indigenous languages known. Does your association have the means to assist in these kinds of initiatives? Can they be carried out on a broader scale around the country in an attempt to save indigenous languages that are very important aspects of culture?
Question and for picking up on the importance of Indigenous language. And again, I'll just say that the Federation of Library Associations is an advocacy group in terms of supporting our member associations and their work, and certainly for the Indigenous Matters group, raising awareness around the need to support Indigenous languages in libraries and other spaces is part of the work we do in raising that awareness. I was mentioning earlier, the issue of subject heading. So this is one of the chief ways that we access materials and ways that we access not only materials in language, but we need to access materials through platforms and subject heading. So we know that it is important for people to be able to navigate to materials in their language, not just through English to get to those materials. So that is one of the areas that we are advocating for sites like public libraries or academic libraries to consider ways of implementing systems that will support not only language revitalization, but that language usage as well. So that is certainly something that we seek to support library or member associations in doing. Because as we know, part of, as I mentioned in my story, is my own grandmother did not teach her children language. My father could never speak to his grandparents, who they spoke a mixture of French and Anishinaabe-Moan, and he could never speak to them because they did not speak the same language. So for me, it is also personally important.
Je vous remercie. Quels sont...
Thank you. What are some of the steps, and maybe these steps being undertaken already within universities or academic institutions? I believe you're doing some work even in elementary schools to sensitize the younger children and teaching them their culture. Do you already have some steps undertaken? And how was this received amongst the teaching staff around the country?
Thank you. I would have to get back to you on specific issues around public schools. My personal experience is more at the academic level, but I have been working on a project where we are working on looking at, as I said, on the subject heading front of implementing systems where we have access to materials through Indigenous languages, so supporting multilingual systems. We know that often software doesn't come out of the box all the time and as a multilingual piece of software, so that's important too, to advocate for software. And also I will say that through our member associations, being to also connect with other initiatives at the international level that are supporting Indigenous knowledge and languages as well. So part of it is supporting the availability of materials, so supporting the purchase of materials in Indigenous languages, but also making them accessible through means of in language. So there are numerous projects, and I'd be happy to connect you with some of those resources.
I would like to ask Mr. Big Snake a question. You said that you are a survivor along with your wife of residential schools. What were some of the obstacles you had to overcome to live through some of these experiences which you went through in the residential schools?
Well, just to thank the witnesses for their comments, and I guess through our experience, I felt that I was pretty well raised for my grandparents, and I'll step back a bit here to let you know both my parents spoke fluent Blackfoot, and I'm the only boy in my family out of 5. And 4 of my sisters also speak fluent Blackfoot. And one of the impacts is that I did stay with my majority of the time with my grandparents. And both as well spoke fluent Blackfoot. However, both my grandparents did tell me at that time, you got to learn how to speak English as much as you can. We cannot speak the Blackfoot language. Unfortunately, I never did ask why. Why is the reason I could not speak my language? No blame to my grandparents. They wanted good for me. But that has an impact. And today I feel that I do my best. I do comprehend and understand the Blackfoot language. Speaking it is a challenge for me. And that's one of the impacts that I have due to the fact that my grandparents want to see the best for me. However, they were told that we need to do away with our Blackfoot language because it was an omen. My wife, well, with that system, with her mother, she was pregnant while she was in residential school. And it was the only way for her to escape the residential school system was for her to get pregnant. As a single parent, the day she was born in 1967, she was taken from the age born due to the fact that her mom could not care for her.
Mr.
So
Big
those
Snake,
two scenarios had an impact. Yeah.
No, you please finish your thought. I have to go to the next questioner, but go ahead.
Yeah. So those are the experiences. Is that it has an impact, and it has affected our children, which would they want to speak their language, and both of us. Actually, my wife is Cree Indian, so we'd like to teach my children how to speak the language. Not only that, or my grandchildren.
Thank you very much,
grandchildren. Sir. Thank you.
Ms. McPherson, for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all our witnesses for being here and sharing with us today, of course. I do have some questions for you, and I think for a number of you, but I think what I'll do is start with Mr. Big Snake, if I could. Mr. Big Snake, I'm also from Alberta. You can probably recognize the snow behind me because it's
yes.
what we're dealing with here. We know a little more about this than other parts of the country. And thank you for your comments on residential schools and sharing what you have gone through. As you know, in Alberta right now, we have a provincial government who is bringing forward a curriculum that is looking at removing residential school, any reference to residential schools from our provincial curriculum, which is, of course, extremely disturbing for me and I'm sure for you. Do you think by having a day for truth and reconciliation that this will give us a better opportunity to ensure that even when provincial governments don't take their responsibility to educate children across the country on residential schools, that it gives us an opportunity to do so? And what are the impacts of that? If you could speak to that a little bit, please.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think that's very sad. I agree. I totally disagree with the position the province of Alberta has taken regarding this situation. But I believe that the impact here, as you know, there are certain incidents that's occurring in Alberta based on racism. And with our fellow people, I know they've witnessed a lot of that. What's happening in Alberta, particularly. As you know, what's happening in Red Deer, Black Lives Matter, and with the help of Aboriginal organizations, they were interrupted, particularly the RCMP, and they took one side. And my comments today was that I just feel as Indigenous people in Alberta, I feel that we are separated from anything that we do, whether if it's entrepreneur and that has an impact. And I think at this point in time, considering the as a national holiday, I think that's a start here to send a message, because there is nothing for First Nations or Indigenous people across Canada to recognize anything for them. Should this happen, I think it will have a big impact. I mean, there's 94 calls to action, and I think there's only 7 that's been recommended now. I think this is a good start. We need to send that message, and particularly to the provinces as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's all about us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I guess, my next question is for Dr. Casson. You spoke a little bit about how your children or your family's doing education at the kitchen table, as so many Canadians are across the country, and how the Orange Shirt Day had such meaning to see how that was being done. And I also have children. They also spent a lot of the last 9 months at our kitchen table doing their schooling. One of the things I was reflecting on when you were talking about that is how important Remembrance Day has become in our national identity, I guess, and how children learn so much because we have that day set aside, and it's not necessarily recognized as a holiday, both federally and provincially, but as a sort of almost universally acknowledged important day to recognize what people have endured, what people have sacrificed as a day of memory. And I think having that day is so important to making that a reality. Could you talk a little bit about how you could see the Truth and Reconciliation Day, the day on September 30th, the lessons we could learn from Remembrance Day, and how libraries could use that day to continue to I guess bring forward these ideas of information and education?
Thank you. Yes, I was reflecting as I was preparing for today, and since we just Remembrance Day just passed, and we did have again witnessing my children doing Remembrance Day remotely, and they even had remote Remembrance Day assemblies. So thinking about how and again, I am so grateful to Phil Swenstad and the way that Orange Shirt Day has now, even just in the past 2 or 3 years, has become something that is happening at schools. I know that 3 years ago, when my children were a bit younger, that was not necessarily marked in the same way. So like Remembrance Day, a day such as this would allow, for example, school libraries to pull together materials in a display, or for children to be able to begin to prepare, because we know with a number of other ways that we mark days in Canada Day, for example, that it isn't just the day, that there is preparation before and teaching of why we hold this day important. So it's not just that there is a holiday on this day, but there is a reason for the holiday. And so it is all of those preparations that now we have Christmas starting up, I suppose, well ahead of time, so that we see that those preparations allow for numerous kinds of preparations. So not only for school children, but as I was mentioning, for adults as well. So looking at ways of why not have ways of reading the TRC, sort of book club ideas, or reading different kinds of materials. And so it allows for displays, exhibits, lesson plans, all of those kinds of ways that we think about, again, when we go into our public spaces and we see Remembrance Day or Canada Day displays go up. We would see the same thing for a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And I think that has impact, because again, it is about demonstrating that this is important, and not allowing, like in Remembrance Day, we do not forget. We remember those experiences. Even as we have fewer and fewer veterans left from the Second World War, even, we still remember. And so I think, again, in the same way, it allows for that gathering and that learning beforehand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now going to move to our second round. 5 minutes, Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields, you're still on mute, sir.
Would people like to have me on mute at times? But anyways.
I was about to say, it's no reflection on you, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I agree with Mr. Housefather about the critical role. I was vice president of the Alberta Library Trustees Association for many years. But here's the problem for libraries. They don't have money. They don't have money. And unless we're willing to direct money to libraries, which I would advocate for this, they don't have the money or the resources to do this. I believe in what you said, but we need to give them money to do it. Mr. Hines, your consideration for a 2022 implementation of the cost, that's an interesting one. But Mr. Big Snake, I've had the occasion to be at events with you and have listened to you. You are a very intelligent and passionate. And when you said in your comments about people coming to your nation, You have a residential school that's still being used. You have a world-class Blackfoot Crossing. How could this day be? How would you envision this day and more where we bring people to learn about this?
Well, like my background is economic development, and I think the impact here is, I guess, in my earlier comments was the education system. We need to educate a lot of people out there. We're not still sending a message. So our facilities here, and particularly the Interpretive Center, can provide that. And then with that, it invites people right across worldwide. It's there for a purpose. And I don't know if any of you have been there, but if you enter the building, there's a lot of history about residential school. And I've seen a lot of people come out of there, Indigenous people coming out of there crying. And they want to learn more. And we provided that information to them to understand what their livelihoods were. And to have an Indigenous National Day, I think it will help a lot of people that will come out to First Nations lands to understand that. And that's going to create, economic activity, not only for First Nations, but on and off reserves. And I feel that now it's time to do that, to take those opportunities and to expand that and working with First Nations. And yes, we do have our old residential schools standing up. But like I said in my comments, we have to take something that's negative to be positive. And we converted that old residential school into a community college where our people are taking their education to the next level. We have to facility. I'm proud to say, as a former leader, today we have doctors, lawyers, dentists, you name it, nurses, teachers, a lot of professional people, and I'm proud of that. And with that, again, I invite the world to Siksika. I believe other First Nations would like to do the same on this day. Thank you, Martin. And good to see you.
You bet, you too. And I hope more and more people get to see Blackfoot Crossing. It is a phenomenal exhibit, phenomenal place that people need to see. So that, I guess, is what we're saying is, from your point of view, people need to come to your nation. They need to see it. They need to walk in those footsteps.
Yes. Exactly. And I think they'll have a good opportunity to see what has happened in history, the past. I think that's really important. They need to visualize, and that's where you can see that visualization of what really happened. It's a touching story, and I cannot, I keep saying to people, come out to Siksika, see for yourself.
And possibly the opportunity to visit with you and your significant contribution about white buffalo and what you have acquired, I think, is a phenomenal story as well.
Yes, and I my wife and I feel that we're really blessed in acquiring these buffaloes. It's, I would say, I never had any count, but I'd probably say about a couple hundred people since September when we acquired them have visited. And we had one visitor that everybody keeps commenting on Facebook or Snap or whatever you call that, was the former Prime Minister, Stephen Harper. He was a visitor here, and he mentioned that he wanted to be here for 20 minutes, half an hour, due to his schedule. But I have to say he was there for 2 hours. He was curious what the significance of the white buffalo was. We did give him the story, and I really appreciate that. And that's a start there. The gentleman, and such as yourself, Martin, it's an education that's going to start here.
Thank you very much. Now, folks, the clock shows that the hour is done. However, we did have a late start, so I'm going to allow one more question. Madame Bessette, pour 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Madame Bessette for 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your generosity And I would like to thank all our witnesses for being here with us. I appreciate the time you take to discuss this very difficult topic with us. My first question is for Mr. Big Snake. I thank you for your personal testimony. Could you give us some more details as far as the reasons why you find this bill necessary?
Well, like I said earlier, was that, is there anything, any other holidays that represents First Nations? There's Family Day, Christmas Day. Christmas Day doesn't reflect our culture wise. You know, it's about Jesus and so forth. We weren't part of Jesus. What we don't call God, but we call it as the creator. And we believe in that. I think we need to balance this out. And I think it's really important that, and I keep emphasizing about the educational part. And this holiday, I think, is a start. Whether it starts in 2022, that's fine. But I feel that it's a message that's going to be sent, and we need to start implementing these 94 calls of action. And I believe that's a positive start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was obviously struck by the testimony, and I was speaking with colleagues who were struck by the testimonies of Indigenous and non-Indigenous children who thought Orange Shirt Day was just a day when you put on an orange shirt. They need to know why. We have to go into the heart of this issue, and we have to have a day in our calendar that says we have to pause and think about this. I don't buy the money argument. People are going to get paid anyway. So I think pausing lets everybody pause, and it's 11 million. Are we worth spending 11 million on to commemorate this part of our history? Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. And I think, you know, I'd rather take huge spending. I don't know if it's spending, calls it an investment. And that investment, you know, it's going to create a lot of opportunity. And I truly believe that. You know, whether it be, you know, there's a lot of opportunity. And it's over, you know, I don't know what to say here, but we recognize that. I think I just feel that, you know, all the people that were hurt through the history of what's happening to us, it has to come to the forefront. We have to quit hiding it and denying it. It says truth and reconciliation. And the doctor mentioned is that, yes, we need to talk about the truth. Then we can reconcile after that. That's important to me. So whether it's, you know, Orange Day, Orange Shirt Day, or there's a lot of mishappenings to First Nations. And I think everybody needs to know that. And I think that day we need to utilize that day to send that message out in a positive manner. I need to use that. What happened in the past, the negativity about that, is turn that around and make it a positive for everyone. And I truly believe that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My second question would be for Dr. Alison Cassin. En français, désolé.
You said that the first step for the truth and reconciliation process is the truth element. We have to carry out difficult discussions in order not to forget these scars from the past and never repeating history. In your experience, what's the best way of carrying out these sensitive, difficult conversations with people?
Thank you for your question. And, you know, it's one of those it depends answers, I think, on how one carries out those conversations. I will say I think it's important to have those conversations with small children as much as it is to have them with older people. And that obviously my story was about my daughter in grade 3. I know we have been talking about this in my family for some time. And so it is this is why I think education is important, but it's also important to educate the educators and to help those participating in education, whether it's teachers or librarians or other people in other areas, parents even understand that even though these topics are hard, and it is hard to talk about, I will say when children are taught in school, I think as mine have been also, that Canada is the best, and Canada is you know, has all these wonderful things, and then you say, well, yes, but there is these parts of Canada that that require work, and so allowing also people again to learn how to have hard conversations and to not have them because they're uncomfortable or you don't feel equipped to have them. So I do think that that is particularly important, and thinking about ways that you know, Mr. Big Snake, and coming out to the territory, to the land, and seeing those places is also vitally important for having an understanding of what happened. And so I think you know, again, it depends, but I think the biggest part is not having them. That for me is one of the biggest things I would say. And so having a national day does speak to the importance, and to sort of saying, no, we can't not have these conversations anymore.
I have to end it right there. We're over time right now. Merci, Madame Bessette.
Thank you, Ms. Bessette.
A special thank you to our three witnesses here. Mr. Big Snake, I want to say thank you. And I think I can speak on behalf of many to say that you've widened our interest in white buffalo. That's really something. Quite a story. Dr. Allison Casson.
Well, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome.
Oh, it was our pleasure. Thank you. Dr. Allison Casson, thank you so much for your time. And of course, Mr. Hines, we also thank you. Okay, committee, we're going to suspend to set up for our next panel. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We're now, of course, in our second hour of witnesses, where we are discussing Bill C5, an act to amend the Bills of Exchange Act, the Interpretation Act, and the Canada Labour Code, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We have two witnesses for the second hour, and I want to thank them very much for joining us. They're joining us remotely. I will give you the opportunity in just a few moments to correct any mispronunciations that I have. But in the meantime, I want to welcome National Chief from the Dene Nation, Norman Yakalea, and also from the Innu Chief of Akwinshi, Jean-Charles Pietacho. Ekwani. Ekwanichit. Okay. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. On behalf of everybody, thank you very much. Now, both of you, of course, under the umbrella of the Assembly First Nations, the way we do this in witnesses, we have up to 5 minutes as your opening. We provide some leeway, but obviously to finish your sentences. And then we proceed with questioning after that. So we're going to start with Chief Yakalea for 5 minutes.
Masi, Sotene, Dutene, Gona Zone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In my language, I said thank you to my relatives on this call. And today is a good weather outside. It's beautiful outside. So members of the committee, friends and relatives, thank you for inviting me here today to join in sharing the perspectives of the Assembly of First Nations on Bill C5, an act that will result in a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation as a national statutory holiday. While I'm encouraged the building of a relationships based on the understanding and respect every day, I'm here to support the bill, advocating for the creation of a national holiday. Creating a national statutory holiday for Indigenous people will assist in promoting reconciliation while also commemorating those who need commemoration. We must not forget the past harm done to our communities and the long-lasting legacy of the residential school system has had on First Nation and Indigenous communities. There will still be challenges to the relationship building between the First Nations and Canadians. A national statutory holiday could provide an opportunity for learning, education, and coming together for a better understanding of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, its goals and aspirations, and how all of Canada can move towards on the path to reconciliation. As indicated in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People provides the framework for reconciliation. Article 15 of the Declaration states, Indigenous people have the right to the dignity and the diversity of their cultures, their traditions, histories, and aspirations, which shall be appropriately reflected in the education and public information. It further calls on states to take effective measures in consultation and cooperation with Indigenous people to combat the prejudice and eliminate the discrimination and to promote tolerance, understanding, and good relationships amongst the Aboriginal, Indigenous people, and other segments of the society. A national holiday could be used to combat prejudice, eliminate racism, and promote tolerance. This holiday will serve as an annual act of reconciliation. First Nations have welcomed many of the Canadians' recent commitment to promoting reconciliation, including supporting Bill C-262, the United Nations Declaration Act, and look forward to continued initiatives that foster reconciliation. Several provinces and territories have already acknowledged the important day to celebrate the Indigenous people. In 2017, the Yukon government created legislation that led to June 21st becoming a statutory holiday. In the Northwest Territories, this date has been celebrated as a statutory territorial holiday for 18 years. This is not a new issue. The Assembly of First Nations have been calling for this legislation since 1982. The Royal Commission on Aboriginal People recommended this special day, and the Chiefs and Assembly have several resolutions speaking to this matter specifically. As a party to the Indian Residential School Settlement Agreement that led to the creation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the AFN has a unique mandate in advocating for full implementation of all the 94 calls to action. Amongst these calls to action, number 80, which calls for a very measured outline of this proposed bill. I'm aware of Canada's recent commitment to declare a federal statutory holiday to mark the legacy of the residential school system. We welcome the announcement of a day to honor the history of this period as they call for it in the TRC. AFN Executive Committee recently passed a motion to advocate for Orange Shirt Day, September 30th, to become a statutory holiday for reconciliation. This date, that is near the time of a year when children were separated from their families to attend the residential schools. It was named after the shiny orange shirt that was given to a 6-year-old Phyllis Webstand by her grandmother in 1973 and taken from her and never returned when she attended the St. Joseph Mission School in Williams Lake, BC. I paused at this time because I had reflected that also happened to a lot of us in our residential schools in the Northwest Territories. To conclude my statement, the AFN proposes that this bill be amended so September 30th becomes a statutory holiday for reconciliation, and June 21st remains a national day of celebration. If Canada chooses to fill the call to action number 80 through this bill, June 21st must accomplish the important task of ensuring there's an opportunity for all to honor and respect the legacy of survivors while celebrating our culture and our history. There is a concern over the conflicting tones of these two objectives. Reconciliation is never easy. It will take substantial efforts from all the partners, both public and private, to ensure reconciliation is encouraged, promoted. Sustained reconciliation takes more than just one day. I urge all governments to ensure to keep front and center the interests and the perspectives of the survivors. First Nations are committed to action and change. It is time to restore the original relationship of mutual respect, mutual recognition, peaceful coexistence and sharing. It is a time for reconciliation. And thank the committee and the MPs, Joe Boyce, for raising this important issue. In closing, the Dene Nation, along with the Assembly First Nation, want to ensure that we walk together in these footsteps, and so that our children can truly have a place in society in the First Nations people. And we thank you. We thank our elders. God bless you. God bless our people who are in the Labrador country. We pray for you all, and we look forward to your questions. Masicho, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Yakalea. Chief Biatasho? Up to 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
For 5 minutes, sir. Normally, I can speak all day long, but I would have to do a little sacrifice and only speak for 5 minutes. But this is a very important moment in all our lives. My name is Jean-Charles Pietachot. My family name, as written by the Oblate fathers in the past, this is not really how I would have written it. My name in Innu means he who brings the wind, Pietahu. He brings the wind. So I'm the chief of the Equanichit Innu community. I've been chief for 30 years. I was elected for several long years. And just a little brackets, before I forget it, I would like to underline a significant event which relates to a legend for us. It's the departure of the Grand Chief Masco Louis. He was buried yesterday, and there were 3 days of mourning, 24 hours, very emotional. I went at the beginning as in my role as chief to console the family. And I would also like to point out something right away. I'm a former resident of the residential school system. I was part of the second wave. Let me say wave because there's a lot of talk about waves these days. I was amongst those who were taken up and put in trucks, driven to an airport in a former American air base, and we were put on board these planes. We were quite young. It was fun for us until in the evening we realized we were not taken back home. So you can imagine, all of a sudden we found out that there was many young people from our community that were being taken during the day and at night. Well, I was raised by my grandparents, so I'm thinking I can imagine my grandparents, how they would feel, because they can no longer hear me speak. They can't hear me cry, and the cultural transmission can no longer take place because I'm no longer around, because I've been taken away for lengthy stays in these residential schools. And several amongst us were taken to these residential schools in the West, far away from our community in Maliotenam. In Maliotenam, we stayed about 1 year, 3 years, sometimes even 7 years, 10 years, and some never came back home. So it's these moments that we're trying at this time to grapple with. I don't want to get into this victimization discuss, but I do want all Canadians to remember and never forget that there was indeed this tragic period for our families, for us. This took place between 1950 and 60, or during the 50s and 60s, and a lot of people went through this. When we got to the residential schools, all our clothes were taken away. They gave us haircuts, and we didn't understand anything they said. And I will tell you that it's not really a financial issue. It's not a monetary issue. My spouse and I, we have not received the monies that all the former residents of these schools did receive. My spouse is from Sept-Îles, and her file was seen as not being admissible because for her it was like day school. And we remember what happened in British Columbia in these day schools. There are cases before the courts now. Myself, for administrative reasons, I was denied these sums of money that were due. But what hurts me most is the abuse, is the sexual abuse that I underwent. That's very hurtful. And sometimes it comes back, those memories come back. During a day of recognition, commemoration, it's great. It's a wonderful thing, this day. But for some, it will bring back very painful memories. And I'm one of those. So today I'm chief. And I was witnessing another kidnapping of children. I saw young children leave after orders from external justice system, that's the youth directorate in Quebec, that once again has decided that these children will be taken elsewhere, that they will be taken away from their families. And I cannot stay silent. I have to act, and we are on the way to taking charge. Even if Quebec is challenging Bill C-92, this law that would have allowed us, even if we had limited funding, this law would have allowed us to implement some of our solutions. We are doing it with almost nothing. We have been able to place our schools within families, within our communities. And to me, this whole situation is quite troubling.
On to questions really soon. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'll just tell you what, in a transparent and frank manner, I hope that this National Day will not be meant for you, the public servants, because you will have a public holiday, a statutory holiday. But for us, in our communities that are already underfunded, this will be another day where we have to support the financial charges. It's great to have such a day as September 30th, and to end, it's hard right now. As we are speaking, last September 28th, a young Atikamekw woman died tragically, and she was able to actually capture video just before her demise. And this is all because we deny systemic racism, which is prevalent in Quebec, in the Quebec region. And I hope you will have an understanding for some of our concerns. I wanted to speak with my heart. I didn't want to bring a text. I always like to speak from the heart, because I wouldn't want my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren to go through what I went through. I wouldn't accept that. I wouldn't want to go through that. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Go to the questions. We're going to start with 6 minute, first round of 6 minutes, of course. We're going to start with Mr. Aitchison for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd actually, my first question, I would actually like both gentlemen to respond to, if you could. What I'm concerned more than anything else here about is that we will establish a day off for federally regulated industries and employees, and we won't grow in our understanding. And I say that because of my own experience that before Prime Minister Harper apologized for the residential school system in this country, I didn't know about it. And I'm not a particularly unengaged human being. I was involved in municipal council in my home for 26 years. I didn't know about it. But I have to tell you, the Chief Pietro, when I hear the stories, they are so compelling, so powerful, and so moving. It motivates me to do more, to educate more, to help people understand what we really did to First Nations people in this land. And so I wonder if you would comment on that idea, that instead of just a holiday that gives a bunch of federal employees and federally regulated industries a day off, would you be interested in the notion of having this day, a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, but that the day include education, understanding, and personal growth for people to understand, what we have done to First Nations people and culture in this land.
Yes, certainly. This should be much more than a statutory holiday. If we continue this way, we'll fill the calendar with all this memorial. In Quebec, you would have September 28th, this tragic death of Joyce Echapuan. Definitely, we require more education, awareness, more information to make sure that people do not forget. As I said, I don't want to get into the victimization discourse, but it's about reminding you of what we lived through. And if this day can bring something of added value so that we can try to better understand some of the shame and what we went through. We were in these residential schools. Many died without having an opportunity to tell their story. There are governments, there are judges that have said that all the testimony from the former residential schools should be wiped away. And that is troubling to me because we will be wiping off a significant part of our history that the world has to know. So I think this day of commemoration is very important. We do it for the orange shirt. So maybe on the 28th, we'll have a day for Joyce, and the 30th, it will be for former residential schoolmates. So I'm just thinking that we could end up with too many dates that might actually render these dates meaningless or take away some of the meaning. We don't want to take into account the pecuniary aspects where public servants would simply take advantage to go have a day at the cottage. It's a great initiative. The Assembly of First Nations in Quebec supports this, but with some of the concerns that I raised earlier. Thank you.
I'm wondering if Norman would also comment.
Yeah, thank you very much. Our parliamentary committee members. Mr. Chair, the gentleman asked a very important question, and I think he's got a very important point that just to have a sake for having a sake of a national holiday, I believe in the Assembly of First Nation would want this to be a very meaningful way in that all of Canada, including Indigenous people, really understand the impacts of the residential schools and the other policies that had effect on their life personally in the communities, and that the history of this needs to be told in a careful, gentle, healing way, that as Aboriginal people, we were subjected to these types of policies, but there were a lot of things that forbidden us to speak about them and even know them in our education, in our history, in our schools and institutions. And for the families to know that a nation of people were subjected to these policies under the Indian Act, under the residential schools, and many other policy and legislation, that the first time the Aboriginal people were recognized was when in 1960, when they were allowed to vote in the Canadian system, and that it would be fruitful to have the Assembly of First Nation, along with other people, come together as a task team and to make this a meaningful way, that we need to have this discussion with our Canadian brothers and sisters and have the history, just like we commemorate November 11th. We all put aside our differences and we honor the people who fought for us, who gave us this freedom and sacrificed their life. And just as we're doing this with the residential school, our parents gave up their children to the schools, to the churches, and they sacrificed, and the impact is very devastating. But we're a forgiving nation, and we want to have the Canadian people understand, as Aboriginal people, this what really happened to us.
Thank you, Chief Yakalia. I have to end it right there. We'll go on to the next question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. DeBruzen, please, for 6 minutes.
Chef Pierre Tachot.
Chief Pierre Tachot, I have a question for you. We started to discuss this. What I see from the questions and answers, we understand that there are two things. It's the day itself, be it a statutory holiday, should it be or not? And the second thing, what should we do with this day? What's the meaning? So for the first part, I was looking at the calls to action in 90, and they said it should be a statutory holiday. What do you think? Is there a difference whether it's a statutory holiday or just another day? You said we could have several days on our calendar. Yes. While I have this, I have read so many reports since the Royal Commission to date. There have been so many recommendations, calls for action, be it during the last Truth and Reconciliation, the Vienne Commission in Quebec. The unfortunate thing is that there have been so many people that went to testify. I have elders that have died and that went to testify hoping for concrete actions from governments. Today, I'm here once again, and this has been going on for 30 years, even more than 30 years that I've been doing what I'm doing here, testifying before different instances in my community, at the regional level, even at the national, international level. I worked with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. We're still talking about that in that forum. My fear is that this could become just another day, like June 21st. We're doing everything. During this COVID pandemic, there is not much travel we can do. But in the past, we have shown that we are very resilient, maybe too resilient. And it's crazy, even using the word action. If that has some meaning, I do want to discuss things, but it's also important to implement things, to act. You can't just say bravo for what you said, but there is nothing left to do. Thank you.
Chief Yakalea, because to ask the same question, we kind of sometimes smush into two issues, but there's the first issue about whether this should be a statutory holiday or just another national day in our calendar. And I note that the Truth and Reconciliation Call to Action refers to a statutory holiday. To you, does it make a difference?
I think that if there is a day, and thank you very much for the question. I'm not too sure if it makes a difference. You're in a position to know more than me, and I think that if there is a day, it should be a statutory day for myself as Assembly First Nation to recognize this day, and it's a national day for the residential school survivors and families. So I think for now we've come a long way, and I think that something needs to be done for all of Canadians and for the honoring of the families and for the children in this period in their life to be recognized that there's something set aside for them. Thank you.
And I don't have much more time, but if I could just quickly, because the second part of that call to action is in fact that we use that day as a day of commemoration. And if you have any thoughts about what you would want to see us do, because you said it can help be used to combat racism, like what would you want to see us do as part of that day?
I'd like to see that a day of commemoration for all people, especially for the ones who do not have a really understanding of the impacts of the residential school, that our former students like myself could have an audience with you and tell you and talk to you about the really impact of what happened when I was taken away and put in a residential school, and how when I listened to my mother talked about September 30th hearing the plane come in, she cried. She said, because my children were going to be taken away for a long time, and it really bothered her. And we didn't really give any honorance to our parents, how they felt. They sacrificed us, and us also. So just to have an education with the people, this is what really happened to us, because we couldn't talk about it, and we didn't talk about how it really impacted us, our feelings, and how it hurt us. And we just want to know that we have a story to tell. And sometimes for people in your position need to hear our stories, and need to let us give us that space and time. As the other gentleman said before you, we need an education period. So I think the Assembly should work with you guys. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Bruce. Thank you so much. Now we're going to go to the block, but I understand you're splitting your time. So we're going to start with Monsieur Shampoo for 3 minutes.
Mr. Shampoo for 3 minutes. And then it's Madame Desbiens for 3 minutes. Mr. Shampoo. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's what I was going to say, but you've done the job for me. Thank you. Chef Pietahu, thank you for being here. It's always very moving to hear the stories of survivors of these residential schools, so I thank you for sharing these disturbing stories with us. I think it's important that you communicate these experiences, because that's how we can better understand the horror it meant for generations of indigenous children. We are talking a lot about reconciliation. There are small baby steps that are being met. You spoke about the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So, would that be the key? Do you think that's something that could be a giant step towards reconciliation for indigenous people? Yes, it could be a major tool in this process. As I said, I accompanied elders from my community to the UN in New York and Geneva to work with all different First Nations around the world. Max Boyle usually was part of those journeys. So it's a very important tool, because in the declaration, it states quite clearly that everything that could be applied should be applied, and especially the recognition. I think it can be a tool to move the process forward, especially in the fight against racism. I cannot stress that enough. The systemic racism, these residential schools represent a system that was established along the same lines as the Indian reserves. So I believe it would be a very important tool, and it's unfortunate that for reasons that you best understand, that it hasn't made the progress that it could have. Why do you think there is such a delay? Why is the government not implementing it immediately, in your opinion? Well, it's your system. You have elections every 4 years. You have bills that die on the order paper. And we are working hard in our communities to make our people aware. Like Bill C-92, it's a very important bill for the protection of our children. And this is being challenged by the Quebec government. That's unfortunate. We are working at the ground level, and there are tools, there are documents that we can refer to, but that are not really given the due importance. I think this is work that has to be done over the long haul, and I think the Parliament should pay attention to that. Thank you for being here, Chief, and I'll give the floor to my colleague. Thank you, both of you. Your testimony is quite troubling. I can't even really find the voice to ask you questions, but we don't have much time. I would like to thank you for underlying the death of Max Gros-Louis. I've had opportunities to work with him internationally. He's an exceptional man, and I remember him. And my condolences to all the First Nations. In Charlevoix, there is a great story. There are great stories of life with our First Nations. We have Point aux Alouettes, close to Baie Sainte-Catherine. I'm working actively with my riding in Charlevoix East to set up a commemorative site. So I was wondering, in this bill, C5, where we want to have a statutory holiday implemented, if you had more of these commemorative sites or these interpretation centers where we could popularize, where we can give information to the population. I was talking to my child. She said throughout her secondary school, she had 1 hour to discuss that history. That's not enough. So if we have more of these interpretative sites around the country, could that give us a better opportunity to have a better understanding of your story? Yes, certainly. In my community, it took about 20 years before we could have the cultural center, and we are receiving a lot of people right now, even internationally, when boats were coming in before they were banned. Yes, as you say, that's a great idea. These are very significant spaces. It's just not like an ordinary tourist site where people just take a look. No, it has a deeper meaning. So if people really want to have an understanding of our history, they have to sit down and listen to us, and we will not be talking 5 minutes. Well, one day out of 365, we would rather have it the other way around, to talk about it for 365 years. I don't know if you knew Serge Bouchard, who lived in my community, and he gave back a lot to my community. These are the types of individuals we need, people who understand us, who have lived in our communities, and who are always giving back. Thank you. Mr., you said your name was He Who Brings the Wind. Do I still have any time left? Do I still have any time? Mr. Chair, 30 seconds. Now, in the schools, what would you suggest in history lessons? How can we put pressure on our system, on the department, so we can have more information, so people can have more access to your story? Well, that would be quite a big challenge, because in Quebec, in the Quebec region, it's a curriculum versus our history. We have to have a lot of skill, understanding, make decisions. If people really want to understand, not just simple courses, we have to make it significant. And I think young people want to know. My daughter's right next to me, and she wants to know. I sense that young people want to have an understanding of that history. I think it's important. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Ms. McPherson, 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank both the honored guests for being here and sharing their perspectives with us. This has been extremely interesting and extremely important. I have a question for both of you, but the first question I think I will ask is the chief from Equanichit. I hope that's close anyway. And I wanted to follow up on some of the comments that you had made regarding racism and the colonialism, I guess, that impacts your communities, impacts all of our communities across Canada. You know, we speak of Joyce Echaquan that perished in a hospital in Quebec. You know, we have a horrifying story of an Inuit woman in Ottawa, in the Ottawa hospital this week. There is Bill C-29 that you speak up in my province of Alberta. Bill C-1 is deeply racist towards Indigenous people. And one of the worries I have with the Day for Truth and Reconciliation, of course, I'm strongly supportive of it. It's something that my colleague Georgina Jaldebois brought forward in the last Parliament. But one of my worries is that we will use it as a way to sort of check a box and you know, it needs to be a start. It needs to not be our efforts at reconciliation. It needs to be recognized as an important start, but a very beginning piece on how we deal with racism. And I'd love it if you could talk to me a little bit about those next steps that you think that the government needs to take to deal with the systematic institutional racism in every province in this country.
Well, as I mentioned, I give a lot of presentation. I make a lot of speeches. In 1985, I took part in the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions and the Commission Vient in Quebec. We worked hard. We did everything we could. And if these efforts aren't taken into account, and if it's just another holiday, another statutory holiday, with all due respect, well, public servants might just think it's another holiday and that'll be that. It won't be important enough. When I think about it, and when I think about colonialism, it really concerns me. A band council system is a federal system that was implemented by the federal government in 1867, and the government took our lands. Colonialization created all that. It's a loss of everything. We are lucky. We're lucky to still be able to go on our land. We can speak our language. We can practice our culture. We can bring our children to the land, but for how long? And that's what worries me. We need change. When a federal leader says he will change colonial policies, I think to myself, or when the leader says they'll recognize our rights and our titles, I think to myself, finally, but these promises have been made for years and years, and there'll be new elections, and we'll start all over again and push it down the line. And that's just so tiresome. Every 4 or 5 years, all the efforts that were made seem to be forgotten, seem to be shelved somewhere in Ottawa. And as the commissioner already mentioned, seems to be a storage somewhere in Ottawa, and all the reports they've asked, the hundreds of reports they asked for, are hidden away some there. Someone might be a millionaire in Ottawa storing all those reports that were asked of us. So I don't know what it's going to take. But we are going to need to change, to truly work towards reconciliation. I was sitting next to a young woman in Ottawa when the report was presented. There was great contact, and she wrote me a great little message. That's a first good step. But governments, for some reason, aren't doing much. Bills, laws, but all I hope is that this won't be used to reach other objectives. And I would like to thank people who thought about creating these days.
Well, thank you very much. And I think sometimes I even see us going backwards. And so I recognize your frustration, and I want you to know that I feel it as well, that it does feel like these are things that need to happen. And so my next question, I suppose, would be for our other guest. Knowing that reconciliation takes more than a single day, knowing that we need to actually have a commitment and stop doing the promises and stop doing the reports and stop doing the small pieces, but actually get the work done. What are the next steps? What are the next steps for reconciliation that you see for the Canadian government to take on? So we know this is only one of the calls for reconciliation, of the calls for reconciliation, of the calls for justice. What would you like us to see us do next?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Committee Member. It's almost like Christmas here asking us, and I'm wishing. And I wanted to thank you, and a very important question you asked. And I think that the whole issue here is starting to put things into action. As soon as we say good words, but it's a system that certainly needs to look at what are we saying and to put into action. As I've just met with our elders in the Northwest Territories, and starting to put our education system into place. We are a nation of people under our own laws, and our people are saying right now we are following the federal government laws and the territorial laws that have say over us. So it's still alive and well today. And our justice system and our language and who we are as Dene, who we are as Indigenous people. We have our own laws with our own elders. We have our own justice system. And so it may be apart from what we are subject to right now. If we want to look at education, we're taking our children and our youth out to the land and teach them about the laws of the land and how we look at the land, and how we would promote ourselves. Right now, there is no support in the system to promote our Aboriginal way of life. We are not white people. We are Indigenous. We are Indian. We are Dene. And that's what we are asking for, the resurgence of who we are. We understand racism very, very well. It's in our blood. It's in our body. Ever since we started to go into residential schools, we had the impacts of racism. As young people, we were not given names as boys. We were given numbers in a residential school. We were told not to speak our language. The language was called the devil by the churches. How can we tell our grandparents that our beautiful language at Deneke, all that is, those are from the God they're telling us. How can the church tell them those words are from the devil? And those kind of policies were backed up by the federal government, forbidden for us to speak our language or to eat our own food and to be with our families. Everything that we were as Indigenous people was wrong. And so we had to learn a new way of life, which is strange for us. That's causing us a lot of hardship. We will never be any other person than Dene people, Indigenous people. And we've been fighting for that in our justice system, education system, everything in our life, even to how we look on our land. And so that's a really big task, and we're willing to work. But I think the federal government's got to allow us the freedom to something bigger, and us as Dene people we have always told to work together with the white people and to work with them, but not be like them because we are Dene, and that's what we want to maintain. But however, through the residential system with the policies and the churches and everything, it made us wrong. So we always looked at it, there is something wrong with us because we were not taught to support our own language. And remember that having soap in our mouth when we spoke our language, they put soap on our mouth to wash it out. The churches did that. You know,
Sorry for that.
said we were given a number. We weren't given a name as boys. I was 153. So when they said 153, I raised my hand. It didn't say Norman. They said 153. So that's in our blood. So we experienced racism ever since we got into residential schools in our communities. It's still
Chief,
alive and well. Thank you.
Chief
Thank you so
Yakalea,
much.
thank you so much. Folks, I was really generous on the time, as you may have noticed. Unfortunately, that only affords us 1 hour, one round of questioning. Do I see Mr. Manley in the room? I don't think he is here. I was only going to provide him a short opportunity, but since he is not here, we'll have to proceed. And I want to thank Chief Pietasho. I want to thank Chief Yakalea as well for some really compelling testimony. We thank you for bringing your wisdom, for bringing your experiences to this committee as we now deliberate for this legislation. So committee members, we are going to suspend and do audio checks for our department officials and get back on as soon as we can. Thank you very much again to our witnesses. We really appreciate it. Suspend. Okay, folks, welcome back. We now, in our last hour where we do our clause by clause, I want to say thank you to the officials who are joining us on the line from Department of Canadian Heritage, Joël Momini, Emmanuel Sajou. You have very long titles. You probably have the largest business cards of anyone I know. So I'll just use the department if that's okay, for the sake of time. We also have, I just exhausted that list. And I don't think I have the others. I apologize. Now I'm going to have to ask you to introduce yourselves. The folks, for those of you, they're from, okay, labor. Where's our labor people? Go ahead. You have to introduce yourselves. Sorry about that.
Good afternoon. It's Douglas Wolf from the Labor Program. I'm the Senior Director, or a Senior Director within the Labor Program.
Okay. And we also have Treasury Board with us.
Yes, this is, start my video here. This is Stephen Diott. I'm Executive Director of Strategic Compensation Management for Treasury Board.
Okay. Thank you very much. And finally, Indigenous Affairs.
Good afternoon. My name is Chantal Marin-Comeau, and I'm the Director General for the Reconciliation Secretariat within Crown Indigenous Relations in Northern Affairs Canada. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Pleasure to have you. Folks, yes.
Ravi de vous accueillir.
Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate this. Now, of course, members, if you, during the deliberations on clause by clause, if you have any specific questions, you now know who is with us regarding the officials. Please feel free to ask them questions at any point. So, let's start with, obviously, start with clause 1. Shall clause 1 carry? Sorry. Did I see someone?
Yes.
Yes, there you are. Monsieur Reyes?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Sorry, point of order.
You go ahead.
Not that I want to prolong the meeting, but I believe that an amendment was duly tabled by Mr. Reyes in section 1, and he should be putting forward his amendment, shouldn't he?
That was my thought as well.
Yeah, well, it's right. Mr. Chair, I got my hand up, as you can see.
Oh, Mr. Waugh, I sincerely apologize.
That's okay. My hand is up.
I didn't have the right screen. And Mr. Reyes, I apologize as well. Mr. Waugh, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah,
thank you. And thank you, Mr. Housefather, for your point of order.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, how would you like me? I have several amendments. Would you just like me to do one by one all at once, or what is the protocol you'd like?
How about we go through this? We only have 6 clauses. I suggest that we start by using clause 1 and your amendment there. If everyone wants to know what he's talking about, it's CPC 1, his First Amendment. So why don't we do this each by each? Okay. I realize it's a Friday afternoon, but since we only have 6 clauses, I thought we would do it this way. Mr. Walker, you have the floor.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That Bill C5 in clause 1 then be amended by A, by replacing line 4 on page 1 with the following short title. Number 1, this act may be cited as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation Act. Number 2, the purpose of this act is to respond to the truth, and B, by replacing line 6 on page 1 with the following quotation marks, number 80, by establishing the National Day, end of quotation marks. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. That's it, Mr. Waugh? Okay.
For that clause. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to pass on my ruling. I want to start this ruling by citing from House of Commons Procedure and Practice, and this is from page 770. And I'll try to do this slowly for our interpretation. It says, an amendment to a bill that was referred to committee after second reading is out of order if it is beyond the scope and the principle of the bill. Now, if you read the bill, you will see that C5 amends several acts for the sole purpose of creating, of course, the new legal holiday. Now, that was prescribed by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And in particular, of course, it was action number 80 is what people refer to, what this bill refers to of the legal concept. The amendment, what this does, proposes to remove the concept of a legal holiday and replace it with a symbolic holiday. So therefore, as you know, after second reading, once we accept this bill in principle and scope, we cannot go back on that, as the House by a majority voted for that. And therefore, what this amendment does is goes back on and goes beyond the principle and scope of the bill. So therefore, the ruling stands as being inadmissible. That being said, in my opinion, the amendment is contrary to the principle of the bill. The ruling also applies to other, by the same tokens. Now, I'll use the numbers that are ascribed to the top right-hand corner of the sheets that you have, folks. So the ruling applies to amendments CPC 2, CPC 3, and CPC 7, since they are consequential in what they plan to do and similar to the purpose of CPC 1. Monsieur Reyes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je sais pas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if I have the right to make a comment at this point. The amendments that are proposed by Mr. Waugh and the Conservative Party, they have one goal. We agree with the concept.
I thought you may have had a point of order, but because they are inadmissible, we are unable to debate these at the time. Because they are inadmissible, I cannot engage into a debate on something that's not been admitted. So we now have to go to the clause deliberations. That being said, I return to the original question. Shall clause 1 carry?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
No dissension? Carried. Now, clause 2, there was, as I'll just walk you through this as well. CPC 2 was inadmissible by ruling on CPC 1. So therefore, we go straight to the question, shall clause 2 carry?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Carry. Yes.
Sorry, it's Rookie in the room here, and I don't know if this is a point of order or not, but I'm going to ask you about your ruling and about the intention. The intention of the actual motion is, of course, to implement one of the clauses of, or one of the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Mr. Aitchison, I'm sorry. I think I've heard enough at this point. I tried to be generous, but if it's inadmissible, I can't engage into the debate about the amendment if it is not admissible based on the fact that it goes beyond the principle and scope. If you have a point of order, please get to it. Thank you.
No, what I'm wondering is if we can challenge your ruling, because
yes, you can. Yes, you can.
So I'm new here. I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to figure out how to do this. But I think,
quite frankly, I should have mentioned that. Go ahead.
Well, my point being that if in fact the intention of the resolution is not just to create a holiday, but to actually...
Mr. Aitchison, I hate to do this to you, but when it's inadmissible, we cannot engage into a debate. But what you can do is that you can challenge the ruling. That is a dilatory motion. That has to be voted on right away.
Okay.
But I cannot engage in a debate on the merits of the amendment that was ruled inadmissible.
Okay.
So, are you asking to challenge the ruling?
I am asking to challenge the ruling so I can make my point about why I think your ruling is wrong.
Well, we have to vote on it.
Okay.
We tried. You're challenging?
Yes.
Tom.
Okay. So to be clear, the question is, shall the chair's ruling stand? And so everyone's clear, this would be the chair's ruling that CPC 1 is inadmissible, and thereby CPC 2, 3, and 7 are inadmissible. So again, the question is on, shall the chair's ruling stand? Madame Bessette.
Oui.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
Ms. De Bruzen.
Yes.
Mr. Housefather.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
I vote yes.
Mr. Aitchison.
No.
Monsieur Reyes.
No.
Merci, Monsieur Reyes. No. Mr. Shields.
No.
Mr. Waugh.
No.
No. Monsieur Champoux.
Oui.
Miss McPherson.
Oui.
I have 7 yeas pour and 4 no. No.
Therefore, the ruling stands. Once again, as I mentioned prior to that, the CPC 2 of the amendments that you see in your docket is also inadmissible. Shall clause 2 carry? All right.
Yes.
Sorry, I know I'm being repetitive, but I had to go back following the ruling. Anyway, that's carried. We go to clause 3. And again, you'll notice in your documents, you have CPC 3. That too was inadmissible regarding the ruling from CPC 1. Shall clause 3 carry?
Yes.
Carried. Clause 4. We have a CPC 4, or I could just continue on.
I've withdrawn.
Mr. Waugh.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. I should have raised my hand. I've withdrawn that. I've withdrawn also CPC 4, CPC 5, and CPC 6 in the package.
Okay. Just give me one moment. Tom, if you're there, perhaps you can confer with Philippe. Mr. Waugh is, as you've just heard, is withdrawing those motions. Do I still have to deliberate on them?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the
Mr. Miller.
That's right, the legislative clerk. No, Mr. Waugh simply withdrew his motion. He's not going to move them. That's all he's doing.
Great.
So
okay.
You can continue with the clauses then.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I just wanted to make sure what I was doing was right.
You're welcome.
It happens a lot. So, shall clause 4 carry?
Yes.
Carried. Shall clause 5 carry?
Yes.
Carried. Shall clause 6 carry?
Yes.
Carried. Shall the title carry?
Yes.
Carried. Shall the bill carry?
Absolutely.
I'll take that as yes. Shall the chair report the bill to the House?
Yes.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, we draw to a conclusion. The bill has passed committee unamended, and it's on its way back to the House of Commons. I want to thank our department officials. I hope we didn't ruin your Friday afternoon. Nevertheless, thank you for joining us, as we had quite a few of you here, and thank you for all the support. No, I mean
that was an easy job. Thank you.
It was. Hey, oh, there you go. Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
We appreciate being included. Thank you.
That's
Yes,
all right.
thank you so much.
Thank you on a Friday afternoon. Colleagues, that draws this meeting to a close. We will see you on Monday when we pick up.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order. Point of order, Chair. We've discussed the point. Mr. Shampoo. Mr. Chair, in the first round of questioning with the witnesses in the first hour, we already went beyond the time, and you did allow a question period for Madame Bessette. I don't have anything against the principle, but the fact that we've already gone beyond the time allotted for the first part of the questioning, I think it would have been more appropriate to interrupt and to move to the second hour and the second wave of witnesses. I would like to discuss the fact that if you give this privilege, when we've already gone beyond the allotted time, if you give that privilege to one of the committee members to do her questioning of a witness, I think it should be better that other members, that's Ms. McPherson and myself, we could not have a second round of questioning. That's normal when you get into allotted time, but if you do go beyond, I think it should be fair and equitable for all.
Yeah, you're talking about the first round and the fact that we went to 2 questions prior, which did not involve the other parties, such as your party as well as Ms. McPherson's. I'm assuming that's what you're saying.
C'est bien ce que je dis.
Wait. Unfortunately, I have to stick to the original standing or the motions that we passed in the very first meeting that we had, which establishes the order of which we do this. I try to be as fair as I can. There's no doubt I would like to pass on another few minutes. I was pushing up against a clock like I say, we had to get to our other 2 witnesses. I will, however, be cognizant of what you just pointed out to allow equal representation. If you'll notice, I also asked for Mr. Manley, who hadn't said anything at that point, and even though they're not recognized at the committee, they do have a role to play in a situation like this. That is in our standing orders as well.
Permettez-moi de vous interrompre, Monsieur le Président.
Allow me to interrupt you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make things clear that we understand each other. I'm talking about the time frame that was given for the first part of the witnesses. We went beyond that at the end of the time allotted to Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields started his round of questioning when we're already within the time allotted, and we ended the time allotted for the first witness when the second round of the hearing started. And I think it would have been better if you give time to one party, you should allot time in a fair way according to normal sharing of time. I know you pay close attention to the concept of fairness in speaking time, but since we'll be having very important subjects to discuss in the next week, I just want to make sure that we all have the possibility of taking advantage of the time allotted to us.
I will look into that. I just wanted to outline what I was going through at the time to try to put fairness into play vis-a-vis running up against a clock that was diminishing very quickly. So what I will do, what I would suggest though, and I take your suggestion sincerely, what I would suggest to you is if that happens again, chances are it is unwittingly, and perhaps you could raise a point of order at that point when it does happen, and I will try to compensate at that point. Would that be fair to say?
C'est apprécié.
That's appreciated. I wouldn't dare to do so in the presence of witnesses, but I do appreciate that, and I note that for next time. Thank you. Thank you.
Any more questions, comments? I don't see any hands raised. Therefore, I say bon fin de semaine tout le monde.
Have a good weekend, everyone.